Everybody, welcome back to Mohawk Motors. My name is Jason, and I think I'm finally ready to get the cab of the silver single cab back on the frame. So I got some shuffling around to do, and I'll give you a rundown on how I'm doing it here, and then we'll get it plopped back down on there where it goes. All right, so just to make sure we're all on the same page here. Last video, I finished getting the exhaust on. I'm still waiting on an oxygen sensor, but I'll be able to access that even with the cab on, so I'm not worried about that. All my brake lines are all connected. Exhaust hooked up, obviously. Suspension is all bolted on, but is not tightened yet. I don't want to tighten the suspension until I have the full weight of the vehicle back on it. You know, we went through, we painted the frame, blasted, painted the frame. The fuel system is all in place, ready to go. And the last thing I did, what I've been wrapping up this morning, is I've got my factory body mount cups. They're all blasted, painted with a fresh coat of black paint. And I've got Energy Suspension urethane body mount bushings in here. And these are, here's some that aren't yet installed. But you use the factory metal cup and you poke this part into the cup. This sits on the body mount, and then this cup portion goes underneath. The kit comes with some new washers. That'll go on the bottom here. And then you run the factory bolt back through, tighten it down. There is a torque spec. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. I'll have to look in the instructions. But my main goal right now, what I really just want to do is get the chassis moved back over under the lift and get the body lowered back down and into position. Can take some finagling, can take a little shimmying, but not the first time I've done it. So it shouldn't be too terrible, especially everything's all new and cleaned and painted. And based on what I've done here, I shouldn't have any interference issues or anything like that. So I'm gonna get this thing shuffled over to the bay and then move things out of my way and get it rolled under and sitting back down on those body mounts. Well, everybody, I got a little snafu here. So when I raise the cab up, I have the, the don't go any higher switch connected at the top, which automatically powers down the pump. And unfortunately, it seems that the cab hit the no more power switch, the no higher switch, at the same time that the locks engaged. So I'm unable to lower it because the locks are still engaged. I'm unable to raise it because it's hitting that switch. So I think I'm gonna have to get the ladder and try to, I don't know, defeat the switch. I guess take the bar off so I can lift it high enough to get the locks disengaged. I'm gonna have to figure it out. Whoopsie. right, that really wasn't so bad. It's sitting back on the body mounts. I'm still waiting for the paint to dry on the heads of the bolts and stuff, so I can't get it bolted down yet. But I do have a couple other little things that I can take care of while it's sitting like this. I want to get the transmission, gear, selector, cable, transmission linkage hooked back up. I want to get some of the wiring run over here in the engine bay. Like I can run the side of the harness, the leg of the harness that comes over here across along the firewall and down underneath. I can get that put where it needs to be and connected. And probably some other little odds and ends. Some with the ground, the engine to cab ground I can get bolted up. There's a few things. I also need to go out and look and see if I have I want to add fog lights to this truck, which I've done videos before on how to add fog lights with these using all factory stuff. It's really not that difficult. I'll try to put a link up here for you if you're interested in that. But I can get the Brake Master booster, the Brake Master cylinder bolted back to the booster. And like I said, see if I have a harness that is compatible to add fog lights to this truck in my seemingly endless stash of GMT 800 parts. And probably start doing some other stuff too. I can get some of my air conditioning stuff bolted back up onto the firewall, because yeah, I can start doing a lot of these things. I'm gonna get going. I'll bring you back when I've made some progress. At this point, it's just putting things back together that I took apart. So really not difficult. Whew. Well, everybody, things are moving along. It's freaking hot out here, but things are moving along. I've got the cab set back down on like you saw. I've got the cab squared up with the frame. A little tip if you're ever trying to do this yourself. The vents at the back of the cab, they pop out pretty easy. There's just a little tab here at the top you push down and they come out. I needed to replace my cab vents anyway, so I took the old ones out and then I pulled a tape measure from the bottom corner of the cab vent right over to the inside corner of the frame. So I pulled one this way, I pulled one this way until I was getting an even measurement on both. Now, given I'm assuming the frame is square, but I have no reason to believe that it's not. So I got my two measurements the same, corner to corner. That tells me I'm square to the back of the frame, which should mean I'm square with the frame. So once I was all squared up, I went ahead and got the body mounts torqued down. So the cab is in place where it belongs. Like I said, I replaced the cab vents. The old ones, the rubber flaps were more or less gone, mostly gone. And without those cab vents, you'll get water leaking in there, critters can get in, bugs can get in, all kinds of stuff. So those cab vents are a common infiltration point for nuisances, water, especially, you know, if you find water laying down here in your corners after a rainstorm or something, good idea to check your cab vents, because if those little rubber flaps come off, which, let's be honest, these trucks are 20 years old, that rubber doesn't last forever. It'll allow water infiltration into there. So we've got the cab back on the chassis. I got some of the air conditioning stuff hooked up. I got the Brake Master cylinder bolted back up. Vacuum booster line hooked up. Engine to body ground hooked up. What else did I do? Oh, quite a few things. Some air conditioning lines, some wiring. I got my Gen 4 engine cover on here, which I think looks really good. Pretty excited about that. And I'm just gonna keep plugging along. I'm almost out of time for the day, but I'm just trying to keep the needle moving. I don't have any specific goal, just as long as I'm moving the needle toward progress, and that's what we're doing. So I'm gonna keep going a little bit longer. I've got probably a little less than an hour left to be out here today, so I'm gonna keep doing what I can, and I'll show you what I managed to finish up. Well, I got a little sidetracked and decided I wanted to stick some more candy on this thing instead of focusing on the stuff you can't see. So I stuck the wheels and tires on there. I've had these for, oh goodness. I think I've had these for about 2 years. They came off of, I had 3 of them off of a truck that I parted out. And then I bought a new 4th one to make the complete set. And they look, I mean, they're wide and they're beefy, but they clear everything as far as brakes and ball joints and everything else. And I'm really hoping that they'll clear with all the front end back on it, the fenders, the inner fenders, everything else. But I probably won't get to putting those on until another day or 2, probably. I got to get the core support on, get all the plumbing done. I'm going to do as much as I can before I put the fenders on, because then I don't have to lean over them to do stuff. So they look good. I love the way they look. But now that I see them on the truck, it's going to be, I think it's going to be tight up here in the front. I think we're going to be really close to rubbing in a couple places. So we'll see. We'll find out. I'll see you guys later. I got to go up. Well, good morning, everybody. It's the next day, Sunday morning. Slept in a little bit and ready to get after this thing. I was trying to fight the urge, but in realization, eventually, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do a full color change on this truck when I paint it, which means the bed is going to have to come back away from the cab anyway. So if I bolt the bed down, whether I do or don't, it's going to have to get on there and then it's going to have to be moved again. So fortunately it's a short bed and I have the tractor, which makes it not terribly difficult to get on and off. So I'm going to set the bed back on this thing. I'm trying to make it look like a truck again. And I think I should be able to fit it. I'm pretty sure these wheels and tires are going to clear just fine. So I'm going to go get the tractor and we'll try to get this thing really looking like a truck again. All right, well, as you saw, got the bed back on. Smooth, no problems really. Got it bolted down, everything's lined up. Happy with that. Good to see that I didn't accidentally tweak the frame or anything like that, but I didn't think I had. I'm just being goofy, guys. So, I'm actually really happy with the stance. Like I said, I wanted to get it lower, but not super duper low. I didn't want to have to modify the frame or anything like that. I'm happy with how my rear tire wheels and tires are filling the wheel well. I like that. Now the question is going to be, will they clear in the front? I don't know. But the only way to find out is going to be to start putting the front back together. So I've got all my body mounts and stuff ready. I'll get the body mounts on, core support, radiator, and just start stacking all the pieces in there and getting it all back together. I'll bring you guys back once I've made some progress. All right, not a lot more progress. Got the steering hooked up, centered, so I can turn the thing, and had to change how I had some wires routed. I didn't have the main body harness in the right place, so I had to move that and get that where it belongs. And now I think we're ready to set the core support on this thing and start getting all the plumbing done. That's gonna be after I go do some stuff with my family. So I'll see you guys this afternoon. Whew, it's hot, team. My thermostat is saying it's 84 degrees here in the workshop, and that feels cool compared to outside. It's hot, but making progress. I've got the core support just kind of held in place. Before I go any further on that, I want to get my harness swapped out so I can add fog lights to this thing. So I went through my little part stash and found a harness. I believe this is from an 06 or an 07 truck based on the 03 to 05s. Used this little 6-pin connector as part of the harness for, I think this is for like if you have a temperature sensor and not fog lights and a few other odds and ends. And this one uses this big 12-pin connector, which fortunately past Jason was thinking about future Jason and cut it off with the pigtail here. So I should be able to just splice this pigtail into the factory harness there. I'll remove this connector and then I'll just splice the wires onto the ones for that connector, which will be nice also because it'll leave me a few extra circuits if I want to add something in the future. But yeah, I'm gonna get the old harness off, get the new harness on, and then I can start putting the other things on the core support, the radiator, things like that. So not much to it, remove and replace. All right guys, well, I've reached what I think is a good stopping point for today. I'm tired of being hot and sweaty. I'm ready to go in and cool off a bit. And here's what we did. We've got 98% of the plumbing is all hooked up. We got the upper and lower radiator hoses, the steam line, power steering hoses, power steering cooler lines, the oil cooler line. Yes, I'm still running the oil cooler. If you can keep your oil cooler, it will lubricate better. I already had the radiator. The engine was already set up for it. So to me, there was no reason to eliminate the oil cooler. So we kept it. The transmission cooler lines are hooked up to the radiator, but silly me, I forgot to order a transmission cooler, an external cooler. So that'll be here in a few days. I'll get that put on once it arrives. I've got one of my heater hoses hooked up. The other is part of the coolant reservoir. Same with our upper return hose. So we'll get those hooked up once I get the fender on this side and the inner fender in place. But that's a lot of it. I mean, there's not a whole lot left to do up here on the front except get the fenders on it, do the last things that mount up to the fenders, and then get the front dress back on. So, getting close. I do have to decide / figure out, in order to tune this thing, I need to have a wideband oxygen sensor. And there's provision for it in the Y pipe. I just need to figure out where / how I want to mount it in the cab. I haven't decided yet. I'm not sure. I have a couple ideas. Somewhere around here, I think I have a little pod to mount it here in this vent, which would be nice. So I think I might do that. It just depends on what I can find. I've got the gauge cluster for it still to get put in, and then I have to make the big decision. Do I want to put it together how it was and drive it and do the rust repair this winter, which is what I'm really leaning toward, or do I try to do the interior changes and upgrades that I want to do now? I think I want to just get it back together how it was and drive it. And then this winter, when I'm not driving it anyway, I'll take it back apart and do the rust repair and do the interior modifications I want to do. So, good progress. Happy with it. Slowly but steadily getting this thing turned back into a truck. Woohoo! That's it for today. I should see you guys tomorrow. All right, everybody. It's a couple nights later. I took a little break to work on another project for my new neighbor, but I'm back on the silver truck tonight. My plug wires did come the other day, and I like these. These fit and clear really well with the headers. If I remember correctly, they're made by Hutchison, I think. And then, as I mentioned before, I knew I had an old wideband oxygen sensor laying around here somewhere. So I dug through some boxes and found that. And I do have the little air vent mount for it, which is awesome. And I had all the wiring, the sensor itself. So I was looking where I can run the wiring through the firewall. I don't like drilling new holes. And it came to me, I have a hole where the throttle cable came through that I can use. And sure enough, in my little grommet set, I had a grommet that fits perfectly, and I was able to feed the wire through, so I've got a nice sealed penetration there. I didn't have to use a new hole, or I didn't have to drill a new hole, and filled up a hole that was there that I was going to have to do something about. So that worked out really nicely. I'll finish wiring up later. That's not important right now. But what I want to try to do right now is get the fenders back on it. So I've got my fenders sitting over there. I want to get the driver's fender on first. I've got everything prepped and moved out of the way and ready for me to sit it back on there. So I think I'll sit you guys up and I'll try to get it wrestled into place. All right, so before the fender, I've got this little wind dampener. I don't know exactly what the purpose of these things is, but I know GM wouldn't have put them there if they didn't have a reason. So I'm going to put it back. Maybe they help with wind noise or something like that. And then if you're not familiar also, GM's cowl drains right here, which conveniently dumps all kinds of junk down into the inside of the fender. And that's what causes them to rust out down here in this area. They get all full of junk. That junk gets wet, holds moisture against the metal, rust. So if you can, get all the junk out of the fender before you put it back on. You just blow it out with an air blower or pressure washer or whatever. I've already done that here with mine. So, get lined up here. Oh, forgot about that little guy. Move that out of the way. So I'm sitting. Let's get these back in. And really, to get this fender lined up well, I'm going to have to put the door back on. But I just want to get it sitting on here right now. Get the core support on. And then I'll sit the door back on also. Oh, forgot about the bolt at the bottom. Can't leave that one in there. There we go. Try not to drop your bolts down inside of your fenders. Important to remember here, also, the core support, until it's torqued down, sits a little high. So my plan here is, now I've got all my bolts that hold my fender on started, but they're loose. I can put the door back on. I can get the fender lined up with the door. Then torque down the core support. Then tighten down the fender. Make sense? The door is pretty much the only thing I can adjust up here. So that's got to be on first, and then I'll line everything up based off of the door. I figured I'd show you guys what I was just talking about. Maybe it'll help if you're a visual person. Maybe this will help. So I've got the door back on the truck. And you can see my door gap here at the back with the cab. Nice and even, nice and straight, all lined up. Beautiful, just how I want it. But my gap here at the fender, you can see at the top it looks about right, but as you go down it gets wider. And the reason that is because I haven't yet torqued down the core support. When I torque the core support, it'll squish the body mount bushings, lower the core support, and lower the front of the fender. And as that comes down, it'll close the gap at the bottom of the door. So I'm going to get the door on the other side and then make sure that my gaps, I'll make sure my gaps at the top are even on both sides between the fender and the front of the door. And then I'll torque down the core support. That's how I've always done it, and it seems to work pretty well with getting everything lined up. All right, so I've got both doors on, both fenders on, loosely. And now I've got the core support torqued down. I've got everything even, square. And now you can see I've got a nice, really nice door gap that'll actually tighten up just a touch when I tighten that bottom bolt on both sides. As good as, if not better than factory. Looks really good. So now I'll go through and tighten down all the bolts that hold the fenders in place. 2 up here, 2 up here, 2 behind the door, 1 at the bottom. Those are the main ones. And then I'll start putting all the little structure back in also. The battery tray on this side, the air filter tray on that side, the support on that side, bunch of little odds and ends pieces. So I'll get all those in, nothing exciting, just putting stuff back where it came from. Well, folks, from the side, it looks like a truck again. I like the stance, and I do think the tires are going to clear in the front from what I'm seeing. Pretty excited about it. Really coming along. I think that's it for this video. I'm not ready to start putting the front end together yet. I'm still waiting on transmission cooler. I'm still waiting on a horn, a few other little odds and ends that I got to get put into this thing before I start putting the lights, the grill, all that other stuff back on. So I'm not doing that yet. And I'm going to do a whole separate video on the electrical because there's a lot here to get done. But it'll go by quickly. But I'm pumped. I'm super excited to see this, especially I've had difficulty before getting the body lines all where I'm happy with them after replacing body mount bushings, but not the case this time. No problem at all. And honestly, I think it looks good. I like the stance. I wish I could get it outside, but obviously it's night. You won't be able to see it. But it's really coming along. So that's where I'm leaving it. I got to go in and get some rest. It's late. That's a good stopping point for this truck, for this video for now. And hopefully I'll be able to get back down here this weekend and make some more progress on it. I got to finish up that thing this weekend too. You'll see that video soon. But yeah, that's it. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. If you have any questions about what I'm doing here, drop them in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And until the next video, take care.